Drug abuse. Cancer.
Measles. Diabetes. AIDS. Cancer.
Drug abuse. Cancer.
Measles. Diabetes. AIDS. Cancer.
Drug abuse. Cancer.
Good evening once again, folks, and welcome to Doctor on Call. This evening, I am elated because back with me, my favorite guest. I gave her a little vacation, because she's been working really hard. And I said, you know what? I need to be nice to Dr. Nixon. Dr. Nixon, good evening and welcome back. It's been such a long time. It's like a year.
Well, I'm so happy that you decided to give me that break. It's really a pleasure to be back.
I hope you made good use of it because it's now time for hard work, yeah? So we're going. And I'm even more excited because our discussion this evening hinges on a very, very, very important topic. In fact, yesterday was World Hypertension Day, and we're going to be talking about that this evening. In fact, every day should be World Hypertension Day because it is such an important topic, referred to as a silent killer, and it's something that we have to be so very careful with. In fact, the theme, measure your blood pressure correctly, control it, and live longer. So we're talking hypertension, everything about hypertension this evening. So Doc, again, welcome back. It is such a pleasure, and we're talking hypertension. I know you're very passionate about, some of these topics because you have first-hand knowledge, been a physician, of the dangers of it and how many people are affected by that particular chronic condition. So let's talk hypertension.
So good evening, everyone. Again, it's really good to be back. I kind of missed you.
Yes, I feel loved.
Because I'm kind of impassioned. The way coronavirus has kind of clouded our vision about a lot of other things that we really should be taken care of.
Indeed.
Our health. We've been so distracted. And I want to tell everybody, I'm not wearing a mask because I'm in my house. If I were out there, I would be wearing my mask. And I'm 50% vaccinated. I'll be getting my second shot very soon because I think it's my duty towards myself and more so for my patients and my family that I remain well and alive. So I'm going to ask people to consider seriously and don't be distracted by the other things that we hear. But that aside, the whole coronavirus time has distracted us, has created a lot of stress for most people. In whichever way, I, myself, have been stressed because of corona and, the different changes that got off. And what we find, stress is one of the things that bring high blood pressure on, that causes the pressure to elevate. When the stress goes away, it may be reversible, but there are other things that happen. High blood pressure, we check, it tells us what is the pressure of the blood that runs through our arteries, okay? Our arteries go to carry blood to all our essential organs, and not all of our organs are essential, but that's what it takes blood from your heart to everywhere, your brain, your heart itself, inside of your heart, down to your kidneys, to your liver, to your feet, to your eyes, to your head, wherever it is, wherever your body needs nutrients, and that's everywhere. So if it's hard, and I tell people, try to imagine it rains. Do you know when it rains, sometimes we turn off the, we kind of lock off water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for two reasons. One, the water from the river, because we collect water from the river for the most part, right? Groundwater. And when the river comes down heavy, one, there's a lot of dirt. So,
yes, debris and all of that. Mm-hmm.
The pressure of the water that comes into the treatment plant and breaks up all the elements, all the little piece of machine that filter and pump all of it. The same way, if the pressure is continuously heavy, right? It will break up it will damage your heart. Okay, your heart is not going to be able to function. So think of your heart as a treatment plant where it comes in and it distributes to everywhere else. 2, when the pressure on the pipe is high, sometimes your pipe in your house bursts, right? Mm-hmm. Because of that same elevated pressure. So you can have other damage in other places, right? Especially in your heart. Or in the brain, you can have strokes. That's what a stroke is, basically bleeding into the brain.
Right.
Or either bleeding, which causes disruption of function, or sometimes you get a clot in the brain that causes disruption of function beyond the brain, beyond that point, right? But in those, what we call hemorrhagic, where you bleed, right? You have all this blood that just pours into your brain, and the poor brain compressed because of the increased pressure by whatever remains in there, and of course, function goes away, and you're likely to die. Especially since with the bleeding, if the pressure remains high, you have that bleeding going on and further and more, the brain tissue gets damaged until very central parts are compressed and you probably will die. So it's very important because what we want to do is to be able to, live long, right? And they talk about controlling your blood pressure. First of all, measuring your blood pressure accurately. Second of all, compressing it, controlling it, and living long. If we do things that are good for our bodies, we will live long. Okay? We heard about it, we've been hearing about it. What is tragic is that we find that even younger populations or young children are having elevated blood pressure because of we've had so much change in our lifestyle, right? We see a younger population having very elevated pressure. The earlier and the longer you have that kind of trauma on your heart, on your head, on your heart, that kind of pressure is the more you're likely to have a problem, the more you're likely to have injury, right? So you want to make sure that you start checking early. And they're saying that from your 18 years old, you should actually check your blood pressure twice a year. From your 18. And I think it's kind of important because some of the things that make us have high blood pressure, the lifestyles we live, we're fatter. I saw a picture of some boys from a primary school in St. George's. When there was a boys' primary school in St. George's, that was probably taken in the 60s. In the 60s. All the 9-year-olds are the same size. All the 10-year-olds are the same size. I'm serious. In those days, you can walk into a store and say, my son is 10 years old, I want a pair of khaki pants for him. Mm-hmm. And they know, no, you have to walk with a child. Because a 10-year-old could be wearing the size his father wears or bigger because they're so big. Mm-hmm. There were no obese children in that. There were probably like 50 boys in that picture. There was not one overweight child. The picture has changed, huh? Mm-hmm. So our children are at greater risk of developing those kind of diseases. One, because obesity, overweight and obesity, is one of the factors that can lead us to having high blood pressure.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we think of diseases that affect adults as diseases that begin in adults. They don't. And sometimes we miss it in our children. And if we can control our children, take care and protect our children's health and well-being, a lot of diseases we'll be able to prevent in adulthood if we carry the habits that we've had in childhood. Mm-hmm. I wanted to mention another thing before we go. Well, this is why we're doing generalities, okay? You talked about it being the silent killer. And a lot of people don't pay attention to their high blood pressure, even if they know, because people know it. Mm-hmm. Right? People know that their pressure is high. A lot of people don't pay attention to their pressure until they have...
The stiffness, yes, they start having those...
Oh, I was having a headache, so I took my pressure. I was having a headache, so I went and lie down. So I drink some garlic water. So I drink some lime juice. So I drink a coconut water. And that's not how it is. It's something we have to be aware of. Is it there? Is it not there? There's a study that was done a report on a study that was done in 2014. And I'm bringing this up to show the level of high blood pressure in our communities. Mm-hmm. While we do not have what we call chronic disease registries, we don't know across the board how many people are currently suffering from a disease, because we're not following them up and putting their data into a computer and be able to say, okay, last month we had 600 people with high blood pressure. We don't have that yet, right? So if you're diagnosed with high blood pressure, yeah, we put you in the data, but we're not following you. We're not following if you have a stroke or if you die, not even, God forbid, but we're not following the persons to see what happens. So that's called a registry. We don't have that. But they did a research on some countries. It was South Africa, China, India, Ghana, Mexico, and Russia. And they looked at populations and checked their blood pressure. And that was in persons over 50 years of age, right? More than 78%, 8 out of 10 persons in South Africa, they were the ones with the highest blood pressure. So that's 78%. So every 100 people you see out there, 78 of them had high elevated blood pressures that were uncontrolled. Not only they have high blood pressure, it was uncontrolled, right? What they saw, and that's South Africa they were talking about, because South Africa has the highest rate in the world for elevated. But there's a kind of thread that runs throughout the low and middle income countries, and we fall into that category, that a lot of those chronic illnesses kind of are very prevalent, are very present, okay, in our communities. And it has to do with our lifestyle and other things, right? We know that the rate of high blood pressure and other chronic diseases, but for tonight's purpose, high blood pressure, right? Very, very high in our countries. And so that is why they ask us to be aware. Always think, am I? Right? Am I one of those? We don't have to worry about where we can get our pressure check. We can go, sometimes the nurse downstairs, or the nurse in the clinic next door, or your neighbor has a machine, or you can walk in the doctor's office and say, can you check my pressure? Although I hear some people charge me to take their blood pressure. God help us. But you can ask, or buy a machine and check, especially if you know you've had a high blood pressure.
Right.
So it's important, because even if you're not feeling anything, so you think you're not sick, but you have to go and make sure that you're not sick by checking, because there's not necessarily any symptoms that are associated with us having high blood pressure, and that's where the challenge comes in. All right. So the level of control, despite people knowing that they have high blood pressure, the level of control, they looked at the cascades, and they had a test with some of the Caribbean and North Americans, and those cascades. How many people actually had disease, how many people were taking disease, how many people were aware of the fact that they had disease, how many people were taking medications, how many people were actually under control. And let's say they had 80-something% people with diabetes, with the disease. Probably 60-something% know that they actually, some 40% take medication, and probably like 15% of the people were actually under control. That's a problem. Because we know that high blood pressure is going to cause a couple things: strokes, heart disease. Whether that heart disease that you get a heart attack or your heart starts failing because it becomes so weak. Remember I tell you, with this blood coming in there, the poor muscle can't work. After a while, it just gets very flaccid and very loose. If you've had a heart attack, it means that part of the heart tissue has died. It's like having if you get a cut on your hand, you have a scar, right? And the place where they have the scar, there's no circulation, it's just a scar to keep the place closed, right? But it can't do the function of the rest of the arm, right? Or the rest of whatever place you have that scar. It's the same place. If a big scar on your heart, it can't. You need electricity to go through your heart, right? For your heart to pump. If you have a scar, it stops the conduction of electricity, right? The electricity can go straight through because you have a different kind of tissue. The nerves that are there normally would conduct electricity are no longer there. So guess what? Your heart is not going to beat as it should, right? You're going to have it's going to work harder. You can get another heart attack and die. Or if it works harder, it might try and increase the size of the muscle to compensate for what it can't do. And it's going to get into failure. And that is the reason why we have to make sure we control our blood pressures. I ain't feeling no pain. I'm good. No, you're not good. If those readings are high, then you're in trouble. What are those readings?
Right.
Well, I could ask you that, but I think you know.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Two readings when you check our blood pressure. They tell us something on top of something. The bigger number is on top, right? The bigger number is the systolic pressure. Heart pumps the first time, that's systolic. Heart reopens, that's the diastolic. Okay? Now, the systolic pressure is not supposed to go beyond 120.
Right.
It don't matter what age you are. And the person, she's 78 years old, she can have 160. No, she can't. No, she shouldn't. Okay? Your systolic pressure should not be beyond 120. Your diastolic, the second pressure, should not be beyond 80. That is if it's you and me who don't have blood sugar. I don't know if you have sugar, but people who don't have diabetes or blood sugar have to have even lower pressures. Because already you have challenges with how the blood vessels function and stuff, right? How the blood vessels function. Diabetes is also a vascular disease. You want to make sure that, and most people with diabetes actually have hypertension. So you have to get even closer control so you can especially protect your kidney and prevent those challenges that we have, strokes and heart attacks. Okay? So 120 over 80 is what is accepted as maximum. If it starts going up, you worry. Between 80, the diastolic, the bottom pressure goes between 80 and 90, so it's elevated. Once it gets to 90, you have hypertension. Okay, you have high blood pressure. Now, how do I know I have high blood pressure? How would you know? You have to go check, right?
Yes.
And you want to suspect. Well, if you're over 40, you really should check your pressure all the time, right? You really should check it regularly. But what if your mother has high blood pressure? What if your sister has high blood pressure? What if you work in a job that's kind of stressful, right? What if you're black? What if you live within a certain socioeconomic range? People who are not necessarily wealthy, right? What if you're overweight or obese? What if you're physically inactive? What if you smoke? Right? And what if you take a diet that's high in salt and low in potassium? High in salt as in sodium salt. Whether we like the salty foods, if you don't have enough salt, and we talk about cooking oil or membrane with 6 different salt meat and you're not soaking in because you want to taste the flavor in the meat, right? And you feel your head hurt you immediately. Now, your age, because as you get older, your pressure is likely to get a little higher.
Right.
So the older you are, the race, people who look like us are at a greater risk of having high blood pressure. If you have a family history, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, even your auntie and them, you need to also be checking. If you're overweight or obese means that you're 35% over your accepted rate, right? If you're physically inactive, that is, you're not exercising on a regular basis like some of us. If you smoke, the worst thing ever, and if you don't, and depending on how your diet is, those are the things that put you at risk for having elevated blood pressure, and you should check. Those are the things you have to turn around in order to be able to control your blood pressure.
Right. So, Doc, we've heard of primary hypertension. When we speak of primary hypertension, what do we mean? Is that a special type of high blood pressure, or what is it?
That's what we do. We kind of don't know what is the cause of high blood pressure. They have high blood pressures. We can't put our finger and stuff. There are other causes, like people who have kidney problems and have other diseases, secondary hypertension, and there are actually some kinds of hypertension that can be cured. But most of us have primary hypertension where we don't really have a reason.
Okay.
We know what that predisposes us. But in the case of people who have other diseases, they might have hypertension as a result of that. You get rid of the disease or you control the disease and the pressure goes back to normal.
Okay. So secondary hypertension is, I guess, when you can put a finger on what is responsible for it.
What disease makes you have high blood pressure?
Okay.
You control the disease, your pressure should be able to go back down to normal.
Right.
Should be.
Earlier, you said that your systolic pressure should not go beyond 120 and the diastolic not beyond 80. What if you have a systolic pressure, let's say, of 130 and you have a diastolic pressure of 70?
It doesn't matter, anyone. So 130, you're not told that you have hypertension. What you have is elevated blood pressure. And it's a time, it's like, hey, something is going on here. Let's get this back down to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you really want to focus. That's what are you doing? Are you exercising? Is your cholesterol high? Because sometimes we consume a lot of fatty foods. What is causing your arteries to become hardened? Because what you have is that the vessels are often not able to give a little more as the blood goes through. It's not able to relax, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a lot of cholesterol, it will line the wall of the arteries, and they can't give when the blood comes in a little heavier, and sometimes that causes them to break, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the hardening of the arteries itself will make the pressure a little heavier, a little higher. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at some of the symptoms of hypertension, what to look for and everything. And we would move on to diagnosing hypertension and so on. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sanatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clarisil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
She's been instrumental in the careers of Prince, Mariah Carey, Beyonce, and countless other superstars. She is Grenadian, the world celebrity publicist and founder of Shore Media Group, Yvette Noel Shore. This Saturday, she joins host Eugene Gittins on Green's Music to the World. Follow the discussions online on GBN's Facebook and YouTube pages, Hot 98, Classic Radio, and GBN Television. Green's Music to the World, live this Saturday from 10 a.m.
No, that's not how you cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look left, you look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
Can you spend wisely and have more savings? Yes, you can. Learn more with Money Matters on GBN Television. The Money Matters series explores 12 top ways to save money. In this series, you would learn how to save by setting up your spending money right. Save on vehicle loans, home improvement projects, your credit cards, and even on prescription drugs. Tune in every Tuesday morning at 7:15 for Money Matters, a lighthearted conversation with financial planner Tali Francis. Follow the rebroadcast on Thursdays at 6:50 p.m. and on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Money Matters is a financial literacy public awareness program sponsored by Republic Bank Grenada.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
There's no better way to start your day than with me on Good Morning Grenada. Good Morning Grenada is your one-stop shop. We have information, education, entertainment, your bi-weekly traffic cam, and we link up with the sister isles of Carriacou and PT Martinique. Join me every 6:35 on weekdays for Good Morning Grenada. It's your daily dose of all things Grenadian mixed with just a little bit of crazy.
Good morning, good morning.
I said just a little bit of crazy.
I tell all of the things that take me.
Good Morning Grenada, 6:35 a.m. on weekdays, available on all GBN platforms. Start your morning off right.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the doors shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor in Call, Dr. Sonia Nixon with us, and we're discussing hypertension. Yesterday, World Hypertension Day, and of course, we're still raising awareness to that. In fact, it is something that needs to be done on a daily basis. Hypertension, the silent killer, and you've heard quite a bit about it already. Doc, the symptoms of hypertension. How can one suspect that, and we're talking here about someone who probably not in the habit of having their blood pressure checked. what sort of symptoms or signs they can or that can raise an alarm for them, so as to indicate that there's a possibility of elevated or high blood pressure?
So you very aptly named it. Most of us are not going to have any symptoms. Okay, it's really very quiet. It's there unless if you start having symptoms, it's because the pressure is already very high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and or you're having some organ damage that kind of manifests in itself. Right. So most of us are not going to feel anything. Sometimes the headache we have is just a regular headache anyway that you would have had without elevated blood pressure. But for people who know they have high blood pressure, once the head starts to hurt, they think that's the reason. If your head is hurting, it's usually because your pressure is very, very high. Tends to be down in the neck region, can't get rid of the stiffness, okay? So, we've seen some people who have nosebleeds.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the symptoms, especially in older population.
Older, right.
You get right? That happens. Some people just feel tired and they might get, they feel a sense of fatigue. I really just feel so tired. Take the medication, pressure comes down, and they're fine. Or confusion, because try to imagine, this blood is going into your brain, right, at a very high pressure. It doesn't allow your brain function to be very normal, right? Because there's all of this stress in your brain can't expand to allow for movement, right? Or, so they can so you're really confused. The pressure in your brain is elevated. You can have visual problems because remember the back of the eye, the retina can get damaged. Just like any other vessel. When we talk about this rainfall, heavy rain, and the water, the thing is coming in heavy. Same how it happens when the pressure is elevated on the retina and the back of the eye, you can have challenges with your vision. Chest pains. So you have this heart that's overworking. You can actually feel, oh my chest really hurts. Your pressure is high, your poor heart is overworking, and you get chest pains. You can have difficulty to breathe. You can have irregular heartbeats or palpitations. Also, some people feel dizzy. You can feel nervous. Sometimes you see a little blood spot in your eye. You may have sweating sometimes because you have so much more blood coming up to the skin. Problems sleeping, or if you were I guess I have to bleach my skin or to see myself flushing. In light-skinned people, you will see flushing of the skin because there's just so much blood flowing under the extra high pressure. You get flushing on your face. So those are some of the symptoms you have. The truth is, some of those symptoms, by the time you have them, you're really already very ill. Okay, you have very elevated pressure. So we shouldn't wait for that. That is why it's so important for us to ensure that we check. That we always check in and make sure it's not there. Tell me about screening. Move the curtain to see if anything behind there. Move it. Right? Go get your blood pressure checked. One of the things is important. We talk about, what's the first thing? Checking your pressure correctly. What was it? What was the first thing?
Yes. Checking your pressure correctly.
Right. So you have to evaluate your pressure very correctly, right? So it's funny because I've had a couple of patients who have had challenges with reading their pressure. So they get something at my office and they get something at home. I said to them, bring a blood pressure machine because we also need to have good equipment. Huh?
Okay.
Good stuff. There are standardized equipment. These days we all have the electronic ones that have digital ones,
yes,
right?
Uh-huh.
And there is, and this is not an ad for it. It's just that it really is very efficient. It gives you the pressure. Highly recommended by the World Health Organization, and especially for people who do not have, who can't do the thing on themselves, use a stethoscope and check it, okay? Mm-hmm. You don't stand it or your doctor can, somebody who's trained can do that. But to check your pressure on your own, you can use your digital blood pressure machine. You have to have the right size cuff. If you're a skinny person, you have to put it down firm so there's no space and you get a good reading. Mm-hmm. If you're fat, you have to make sure you have a long cuff, right? So you can cover the whole arm and get it. And there's a way you put it on. It must be an inch and a half, right, like an inch above the level of the joint,
the elbow joint. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you have to take the thing that comes out of the cuff to go into the machine has to be over the middle part, right? You can actually feel the pulse. Mm-hmm. So it has to be over here. right? So it can get the readings appropriately. So there are techniques, and I'll tell people, if you have a blood pressure machine, go to the health center or ask a doctor or somebody who knows. Ask them to teach you how to use it efficiently.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because it's very important that you measure. It's funny because that one patient, one of the patients, was having high blood pressure at home. And I said, but your pressure is fine when you come in. I have a decent machine, right? So I said, I'll bring a machine. You come to my office and both readings give others. She'd get home, because you also, when you're going to take your pressure, you can't walk out from quarter of your children and beat your children or running after the dog and then say, Lord, my pressure must have gone up, and sit down. That's not how you do it, because your pressure will definitely be up, okay? When you're going to check on your blood pressure, you sit and wait 5 minutes, wait, comfortably, sit in a comfortable space, and sit up. You can sit up, but in a relaxed way. I'm sitting on a dining chair, you sit comfortably and you wait and you relax, you know? Don't read your emails because you might get bad news, but you can probably, like me, I watch cartoons a lot, and that controls my pressure and my stress, because that's another thing let's talk about, stress, okay? Mm-hmm. Relax. And then you put on your cuff and you take it. Make sure that your legs are not crossed. Right? Make sure that you're not anxious. If you know you're getting anxious when you're going to take it, Lord, my pressure going to be high. No, that's not going to work for you. All right? Relax, you take it. If you're concerned, relax. Wait another 5 minutes and take it again, which is what I do. Even my patients in my office, I would take the pressure 3 and 4 times and say, let's go down. You also want your pulse to be kind of low, between like 60 and 82, 84, that kind of range. Mm-hmm. 60 for those of us who walk or take beta blockers, which will slow down our blood pressure, our heart rate. But you know, if your pressure is high and your pulse is high, you're probably anxious, right? Or probably have other problems. So sit down and relax. If it's high, and just do it over and relax for the next 5 minutes and wait until you feel comfortable and you're not stressed. So it's very important that when you're taking your pressure phone. But it's also a good habit to learn. Like I tell you, people learn to check their sugars. We have to learn to be in control of our bodies and to understand how our bodies function and when our bodies are not functioning as right as they should.
Right, wonderful. So, as it relates to, well, I was looking at a couple of symptoms as well, and I noticed that they've made reference to things like dizziness, chest pain, and blood in the urine.
Yes, well, I didn't say the blood in the urine, I forgot that, but I did say the chest pain, because I talked about, remember that pressure, that blood going into your heart, you can't have this. And the dizziness, of course, because of all the crazy, just this blood flowing at a very high rate into your brain can make you get dizzy, can make you have visual problems, can make you become confused, right? Blood in the urine, again, if your pressure is high, it's going to damage your kidney. Remember, all of the blood goes to your kidney for filtration, for purification. If this blood is coming out, it's going to damage the little vessels in the blood, in the kidney. Kidneys, and that's not a good sign, okay? That's not a good sign at all. It means that your kidney has become damaged. So that is not a good sign. And sometimes the blood is not necessarily blood that you can see.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's not blood that you can see, or you may not recognize that it's blood. Ask your doctor, and the doctor says, let me test this urine. It look a little darker than I anticipated to be.
Right. Good.
So, but you don't want those symptoms. That you have to. It's so important that we have to stress here that control is important, because we want to make sure that we test properly and we stay good. So you check it, but you make sure you keep it within normal limits. Not working. The other thing, before somebody's considered to have high blood pressure, they have to have 3 separate readings at different times. So because your pressure high one time, my pressure probably high because I cuss off my neighbor because her children drink down all my Julie mango. God forbid. But you understand?
Right.
Or you're upset at work. You know, somebody came in and going to computer and delete all you just finished writing a 20-page document and you can't find it. That's one thing. But if you have 3 separate independent readings in normal, quiet conditions, you consider to have elevated blood pressure.
All right. Okay. So, as a physician, someone comes to you, they complain of some of the symptoms, and you decide you're getting to work now because you need to understand what is causing all these issues. Let's talk about the diagnosis.
So, a diagnosis of any patient is based on a couple of things. What a patient comes with, several things. What a patient comes with, the interview is very, very important. That some people, okay, ask them so much question. I ask question because I want to know everything, right? What do you feel? How long have you been feeling this? What is it? You might have somebody who's had high blood pressure before. Let's say they haven't had it. You check, there's a low reading. Is it, that's the last thing you do anyway, because your physical examination is the last thing you do. But you want to make sure you ask about their diet and their lifestyle. You check their weight. You check their BMI. You ask about a family history, which is very important. Remember we said that, right? There's a family history. There's often. So you go through all of those things, trying to understand what is happening. I get one reading, okay, your pressure's a little elevated. I also ask my patients to start focusing on their diet, especially because we consume so much salt and fat. And you know what's the other thing we consume that makes the pressure go up? Alcohol.
Right.
This is alcohol consumption capital. And, we have one mission, and that is to empty the vat at Wester Hall, which is impossible. Okay? But you have to be very careful because consumption of alcohol is one of the other risk factors to developing high blood pressure. Right? So you do all of that, and then you examine, you take the patient's blood pressure, you check their urine, and then you send them to the lab to make sure that the kidneys work well, that the thyroid glands are working well, that the cholesterols are fine, that the liver is working fine, those kinds of stuff. Okay? That's what you do. Patient has high blood pressure. It's very important that you start changing lifestyle. Ask them to exercise. Ask them to, like we talked about, diet. Ask them to work on stress, because we have to teach our patients stress management techniques. They have to learn how to control the stress, especially in these times, because life is just really hard for everybody. Everybody's earning less money. Everybody's concerned. We still have the same debts. We still have the same financial obligations, and we have to buy more food because our children are at home, and they need more food because they also are bored. And there's no school lunch, which probably a lot of parents would not have had to provide because there's lunch at school. You have to find all of this. And then, like I said, if you're a day's worker, working fee for service, and you don't have any work, how do you provide? There's still light bill and rent or mortgage or whatever you're paying, right? That you have to find money for. And your debtors are not going to wait. So there's a lot of stress that's happening. Not being able to go out and release your stress is a big problem for us as well. So people have to find a way how they do it. Go outside and play ring a roses with the children. Do something like that. All right? But lifestyle changes certainly are very important. And then, if I diagnose, I will try and see how my diet works first, how my lifestyle changes work. If it's not happening, I'll put you on medications. And we have different protocols. The Heart Initiative, the Global Heart Initiative, has did a lot of research. They've actually did research. They also did research on their protocol in Barbados, and that's something that is applicable because we have similar populations. So the medications that you can have. A lot of people don't want to go on medications for a lot of other reasons and for good reasons. But the truth is, sometimes by the time the person comes, they're just been on, hypertensive for so long that you really have to include that as one of the ammunition in shooting down hypertension and preventing premature death, because that's what we want to prevent.
Right.
People over 65, if you control the pressure, you already gain. Once you get control of your pressure, you already gain a new life, another year of your life. And the more you control it, the more you add years to your life. So those are some of the stuff. If your pressure remains high when you're young, you stand a chance of premature death. Of course, heart attacks will consume you, and all the damages to your kidneys and the other areas of your body will actually make you die earlier.
Okay, great. I want to go back to the readings again, and of course we have healthy, elevated stage 1 hypertension, stage 2 hypertension, and hypertensive crisis. Let's talk more about the stages, stage 1, 2, and hypertensive crisis, because we basically covered healthy and elevated earlier.
So that's for academic purposes, but I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So stage 2 is when your diastolic is above 140.
Okay.
Your system, right?
And we're talking talking constantly.
Yes, it's there.
Okay.
Stage 3 is when your diastolic is over 180. That's a crisis. But that also, the patient can also be having other problems.
Okay.
And sometimes some people have malignant hypertension is when it's hard to manage. But when you're in a crisis, you already have other symptoms and other things going on. So, and that calls for rapid intervention. Most people don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to go to but sometimes, well, we don't have the facilities for admitting people. But if you're in the US and you turn up in the ER with a blood pressure of 180 over 100, you're going to hospital. Maybe not so much because of coronavirus, but the cardiovascular centers, the hospitals that do cardiovascular medicine will walk you into the ward before you say, who's that?
All right. So, treating this chronic disease. So, we get to a stage 3. We're not even talking crisis, but we get to a stage 3. You have this blood pressure that is above 140, 150 there, and we touch in 95 and sometimes 100. What we doing here? What happens here? How do we deal with that patient? Do we send them home and tell them, look, no salt, no meat, no grease, or we give them, we start treating them with medication?
No, I think we have to look at managing the person from two perspectives: what to do for the long term and what you do in the short term.
Right.
Okay? In the long term, you want to make sure, because you can't say, hey, you have to start exercising. See him in a year. No. Right? You know that in the long term, that's going to help. But it's not going to help in a situation where you have crisis, where pressure is high now. Right? You're going to ask them to be aware that that's a problem. You ask them to make changes in their lifestyle. You know, exercise, stress management, controlling the alcohol, controlling the salt, and all of those things. That's for down the road, but they have to start today. Okay? But you have to make sure that people have access to care. First of all, that there's somewhere that they can go. So they're in your office. They're my office, right? So they already come to me. Sometimes we forget that when a patient leaves our office, an individual who comes, that they still have half of the obligation, which is blind their medication. So that's one of the things I love for my colleagues and other people who practice that kind of direct healthcare. Remember that after you see the patient, you have to, it's your responsibility, probably morally, more than fiscally, right? But you have to make sure that the patient has access to medications, right? I know that in the public healthcare system, they usually have medications in the pharmacy, and medications that come under that Global Hearts Initiative. There are medications starting with things like losartan and telmisartan and amlodipine and stuff. So those things are there for patients' access, and the diuretics and stuff, right? So you have a stepwise way to manage. So you have to make sure the patients get medication. Look, for people who are hypertensive over there, I know it's hard. It's hard to take a pill every day, but sometimes that's what we need, right? It is important that we try to control our pressure so the amount of medications we take can be decreased, that we change our lifestyle. I don't know, some people can't go off completely, but sometimes with time, we probably don't need to take medications anymore. For the most part, because we take so long to go to the doctor, sometimes we have additional challenges, and you're going to have to stay on your medication. You got me? So, two ways. The long-term way with the diet and your exercise and the alcohol and all the things. You can't change your age. You can't change your gender. You can't even change what your race is. But the short term is making sure patients have access to medication and access to care. And, appropriate follow-up and support and all the rest of it.
Right. As it relates to treatment, we've heard about things like beta blockers. We've heard about things like diuretics, ACE inhibitors, calcium channel blockers, angiotensin 2 receptor blockers, all of those things. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's also important that patients understand what they're taking, and I think they maybe have a better appreciation for, ensuring that they take the medication, because there are a lot of people who don't like to take medication. You give them some medication for hypertension, they take it for a couple of days, they check the pressure go down, and they hide their plastic of medication and they stop taking it. So let's talk a little bit about the medication and what they do and why it's important.
We have different kinds of medication. In simple, uncomplicated, there is, I can tell you, you start with the ACE, the angiotensin blockers, which is losartan and stuff. Amlodipine and stuff. And then you have the ARBs, right? Which is the sartans, losartan, telmisartan, mostly those. We don't really use valsartan, and there's the next one that was taken off the market, all right? So, and those medications are available. Mm-hmm. They're available in the primary health care system, they're available in the private sector, right? So you start with those, and then you add a diuretic. Well, I was taught that people who look like us need a diuretic, and I find it work. That's one of the challenges. So I would add a diuretic. There's some diuretics I don't use. I use diuretics that are kind of gentler on the kidneys. A diuretic is a medication that will make you pass water.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what it does is kind of decrease your volume, so your pressure comes down. Okay? Yeah, you can drink that. So sometimes they have different kinds. They have the old furosemide or Lasix, which just take it out, right? But also takes out some of the potassium, so you feel a little tired. And then you have the Zydes, hydrochlorothiazide, right? The thiazide ones, which also make you pass a lot of urine and take out some of the potassium, so they can make you tired. I don't use those. I use another one, right? Which is not as severe. I use indapamide. But if somebody come on already on thiazide and it work for them, more power to them. Check the potassium and make sure they're okay. Right? If a patient is happy with his medication, I'm not changing it. If a patient is controlled on what he's been taking and he wants to take it, I will not change it. It's not broken, don't fix it.
Okay, wonderful.
And then what happens? So some people, the beta blockers actually slow down the heart rate for people who have palpitations, but it has to be whether you have other comorbidities. Also, sometimes you find it necessary to add medications if you have heart disease. So, for example, beta blockers, people who have asthma can't use beta blockers, etc., etc. You understand? So you have to know how you choose your medication. But beta blockers are known to protect you from having heart attacks. And they make the heart rate. So for people who are having palpitations all the time, right, using a beta blocker might make sense. But guess what? Remember my favorite said, they're not really disease, they're only patients. Everybody's on his own merit, what he deserves, what is working for him, right? What works for him. That's what you give to the person. And of course, we have to encourage people because it's difficult. We know you get a week of antibiotics to take 1 tablet a day, and by day 4 you forget.
Right.
Right? And that's just 1 tablet in a day. So think about people who take 3 and 4 tablets, and sometimes they're twice a day. I try as much as possible to make sure that the frequency with which medications are taken don't exist. And there are a lot of older medications that we don't use anymore, right? That we hardly use. And even in the ACE inhibitors and those groups, they're medications that we don't really use them because they have improvements. Mm-hmm. And then remember, patients might also have high cholesterol, so they need to take a statin to control their cholesterol. They may also be diabetic, who are on insulin or on other diabetic medications. So we have to consider carefully how we're going to add on to that bulk of medications that they already take, which probably make them feel a little sick after a while. So we also have to be a source of support for the people who are taking the medications that we think they should.
Right, okay. So, Doc, we have one final short break to take. When we come back, we are going to open our telephone lines and then, engage our callers. So let's take that quick break. We'll be back with you in just a moment, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
Level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. Plumbing fixtures, cutting and grinding discs, PVC glue, drywall screws, and power saw blades. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, easy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
EC Polymer Notes, our new money.
Here's how you can detect genuine EC polymer notes. Feel. Polymer notes feel smoother than the material from which paper notes are made. Also, the front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you. Look for the clear window at the front and back of each note. This window allows you to see through the notes. If you hold the notes up to the light, you'll see the value of the note in an area of plain colored print. Tilt. A holographic foil is on the $100, $50, and $20. The images move and their colors change when you tilt the notes. Remember, detecting genuine EC polymer notes is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Feel, look, and tilt.
EC Polymer Notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
Hills and Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sanatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clarisil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills & Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills & Valley, your health is our business. GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
You know, one day I woke up and, they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. Nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You know you're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you, indicating that they are going to cross. And only when you have come to a complete stop, that is when they will quickly and safely cross to the other side. And then you continue happily on your journey.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact, wait for pedestrian to cross. Then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
She's been instrumental in the careers of Prince, Mariah Carey, Beyonce, and countless other superstars. She is Grenadian, the world celebrity publicist and founder of Shore Media Group, Yvette Noel Shore. This Saturday, she joins host Eugene Gittins on Green's Music to the World. Follow the discussions online on GBN's Facebook and YouTube pages, Hot 98, Classic Radio, and GBN Television. Green's Music to the World, live this Saturday from 10 a.m.
Welcome back, folks. So our telephone number 435-2041. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Nixon, you can do so now. The number again, 435-2041. Let's go to our telephone. Doctor and call. Good evening.
Good evening, Godfrey.
Good evening.
All I want to know is where to find the doctor.
Where you can find Dr. Nixon? Yes. She's at Bruce Street Mall.
Okay, what days?
Doc, what days?
Monday to Friday, most Mondays, Monday to Friday. I'm there on Saturdays, but sometimes.
All right. So you heard that caller?
Monday to Friday?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome. Okay. All right. Yes. So Doc is at the Bruce Street Mall. That's the second level. Yes, that's where she's located. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Yes, there is a myth that garlic keeps your pressure down, and that is absolutely not true. Garlic does not keep your pressure down in a sustainable way as the medication. And Grenadians are getting confused, and they're getting themselves in trouble because of this garlic syndrome. If I take garlic, I'm going to be all right with my hypertension. That is not true. The only thing that keeps your pressure down in a sustainable way is the medication. Now, there was a woman who decided to use garlic about 3 weeks ago. and she ended up with a stroke. I want the doctor to warn the people in Grenada that this myth about garlic keeping your pressure down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed.
And I want to thank that gentleman for raising that point. I guess you'd have to eat a whole lot of garlic to keep your pressure down. I don't know what is scientific, but you know what's interesting? Because you know the Indians consume a lot of garlic in their food, right?
Uh-huh.
The Indians in India, right? But do you know that 1 in 3 persons over 50 in India have high blood pressure? And I guess one of the challenges we have, sir, and I'm glad you brought that point up, because it goes beyond just taking garlic or whatever else people take, okay? We will take, just how we take our medications, we don't check to see, is this working for me? They say garlic will take my pressure down, so I take my garlic and I'm all right. Am I checking my blood pressure? Just as when I'm taking my medication, you know, and we ask people to come. I want to see you in a week and a half. I want to see you in 2 weeks. Let's try this out and see if it works for you. Your doctor doesn't necessarily want to take away all your money, but you know, you kind of need to pay a doctor for your time, yes. But the doctor has a responsibility to follow you up and make sure that your pressure is controlled. But I want to also tell people, in today, this world Hypertension Day celebration, which we're doing a day late, this is not just for today, this is for the rest of your life. Control your pressure. Be aware that this is a problem and that you have to measure it adequately. You have to control it. That's the responsibility you have when you go home. Find a way. I don't have a problem teaching my patients. I teach everybody how to take care of themselves when they come to my office. But you have to learn that you have to ensure that your pressure is controlled. So it doesn't matter what you're taking, sir. Is that thing working? Is my exercise and my diet alone working? Because my doctor might say, let's start with this. Let's cut the salt. And remember to talk about salt. Let's cut the salt and let's see if it works. But the only way you would know if it's worked is the same way you discovered your pressure was high, by simply taking a reading. And remember that silence is not golden when it comes to hypertension. Okay? Your pressure will be very high and you don't feel a thing. I remember a lady walked into a clinic when I was living abroad. She walked into the clinic one day, and if your systolic, your top pressure is over 300, the machine can't measure it, okay? And her systolic was over 300. Her diastolic was like 170. And I said to her, you have to go to the hospital. Oh, no, I said, you have to go to the hospital. I don't have any other legal or moral recourse that I can take. Not that I've seen you this elevator. I got to the hospital, they'd already given her some medicine. She actually went. I said, I'm begging you. I literally begged that woman that day. Right? She doesn't check. She never felt anything. She just walked and said, I check her pressure now. She just passing by. And you check her pressure and it's skyrocketing. So it doesn't matter whether you take garlic. If it don't work, it just don't work. And like you say, it probably doesn't work because in India, where they eat a lot of garlic, pressure is, they have 1 in 3 persons with hypertension. Okay, what was the thing I asked you to remind me about again? Just a while ago. Salt.
Salt, yes. Mm-hmm.
So we talked about salt a couple of weeks ago, and Mrs. Brown was here. We were talking about what, remember? Front of package labeling.
Yes. We dealt with salt, sugar, and fats. Yes.
If you consume more than a teaspoon of salt in 24 hours, you run the risk for elevated blood pressure. So you also have to cut down your salt. But I say, go and take your salt down. I want to see you back in 2 weeks. I want to see you back in 2 weeks. Right? Mm-hmm. Because you have to check. So it don't matter what you're taking or what you take out. You have to check. Right? The research, I don't see any research that says that garlic works on its own. No, I don't. And I thank that gentleman for bringing up that point, because the people who are naturopaths tend to forget that some things don't work. And just as how we have a myriad of medications, I've had patients that have to change. Some things, not the same thing works for everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay? They're only patients. You're an individual with your own need, your own manifestation of your disease. Your hypertension is only yours. That is Sonia's hypertension, or Godfrey's hypertension. We're dealing with Godfrey. I don't care what anybody else is doing. Yeah, it probably works for them. Let's see how this works for you. Is this working for you? Why you want to change it? Because pressure control say, well, my brother take this and I only take one of it. Guess what? Your pressure control. Why are you going to change it? Okay? So
let's go back to the. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Let's
okay, yes. Doctor and call, good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead.
Good evening. No, I'm hypertensive, and I try to measure my pressure regularly.
Okay.
I use these.
Caller.
Hello, yes.
Yeah. Can you, if you turn the volume of your radio or TV down, because I notice you're listening to the TV and then it's sort of confusing you. So listen to us on your telephone and turn the volume down. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, no problem.
Like I said, I'm hypertensive, and I try to monitor my blood pressure, but I use one of those digital machines. If I check that pressure 5 times in an hour, I get 5 different readings. It's a bit frustrating. I don't know what doctor could advise. Before I used to use the old time thing with this figure and whatever, and it was fairly okay. I was able to manage it, but this digital thing is really, really frustrating. And sometimes I don't know if it's high or if it's low, because like I said, you get different readings.
Don't go. Let me ask you a couple questions. So you heard me speak in the beginning about sitting down and waiting. Do you do that?
Yes. I sit comfortably with my feet flat on the ground and my hand resting on a table, and I don't quarrel with anybody for about 10-15 minutes before.
So are you anticipating that it will be elevated?
Sorry?
Do you go there and say, Lord, I want to pressure today? What if I pressure
No. Just like a routine, get up in the morning before breakfast. So let me just check that pressure and see what's happening.
And is it usually elevated at that time?
Well, sometimes it's okay, but my problem is the difference in the readings. Sometimes I get 120/85, next thing I get 130/20. Well, you know.
So I want you to watch the pressure with your lowest pulse.
To watch
the pressure when the pulse is at the lowest, right and no? And the one where the pulse is lowest.
Where the pulse is the lowest.
Right.
Okay.
Right? And when you go to your doctor next time, walk with your figure and measure with the doctor.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, then, thanks. I'll try that. But like I said...
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yes. All right, 435-2041. That's the number you can call with your questions or comments or, any little contribution you want to make. 435-2041. Let's go back to our telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Yes. The last caller who mentioned about the different readings, she's absolutely correct. I have 3 pressure machines here, digital pressure machines, and they are inaccurate most of the time. And I will explain what I mean by that. They don't work. I'm not afraid to say that. I have checked and tested these machines over and over, and the readings are inaccurate. The only reading I get for my hypertension accurately is the one with the pump. I have checked it. I have tested over and over. She is absolutely correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you.
This gentleman. So, first of all, if you're going to use a digital one, I use an Omron, which is what the World Health Organization recommends, okay? I use an Omron. Second of all, you are correct that the one with the aeronoid ones, the one that you pump air into the cuff, gives you a much more accurate reading. I compare if I'm worried, right? If I'm concerned that somebody's pressure is really high already, I compare. But if you have a good quality, and sometimes we get them, kind of cheap and we buy them. And I don't really support my patients using the one on the wrist because it gives you a ballpark. It doesn't really give you a good reading. It gives you an idea. People use it because it's convenient. For some people it works, but for the most people I would tell them get one that takes the pressure upon your cuff. But I understand what the gentleman says. Yes, you can have different readings. And yes, you will have different readings every time you take your blood pressure. You should actually, because your body in a different state every time.
All right, let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and caller, good evening. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm hypertensive, but I have my own machine. Like, I had the wristwatch one. And whenever I go to visit the doctor, I just walk with it because we keep all the memories on it. And I also keep a little book, so I just walk with the little book as well. But whenever I take the medication, the pressure goes right down like a child. Sometimes it go down to 105, 107. If I take it like 3 days, it going down to that. So when I go down like that, I don't take the medication at all. But when I visit the health center, they said to me, don't stop. But how could a 50 plus blood pressure is 105 and still take pressure to bring it down, medication to bring it down? So I don't take it. I only take it whenever it's high.
Don't go. So I want you to listen to me. And that's one of the things I'm glad you brought up as well. The whole thing of low blood pressure. Low blood pressure is a symptomatic illness. If your blood pressure is low, that you consider low, way under the 120, and like you said, like a child, 120, 107 over 50. First of all, you want to make sure that the difference between the top and the bottom is more than 20, right? That pulse, it's called your pulse pressure. But if your pressure is 107 over 53, 56, and you're fine and your pulse is fine, I don't think you need to worry, okay? I don't think you need to worry. Low blood pressure is a symptomatic disease. You feel sick, you can't do stuff, right? You really feel. Sometimes just expanding your blood volume, drinking a glass of juice or something that put some back fluids in there should help to increase the volume and your blood pressure should go back up. So be very careful. The truth is, the people in the clinic are actually right because some doctors say, pressure's down, stop. No. That's not correct. Your medications are to regulate your blood pressure until it gets normal. They should not make your blood pressure go down to zilch unless you don't have high blood pressure.
Well, it used to be very high, sometimes 180, 192, 196, over 100, over 102. So when I go to the health center, they tell me that there is a problem, but it's imbalance.
Okay, can I ask you how old are you?
55.
How much?
55.
55?
Yeah.
So that's not bad. Listen, that's really, if you can keep your blood pressure under 120 over 70, 80, if you can keep it down and you don't feel sick, you're good. You're in a good place, right? Maybe your doctor can reduce it a little, but I'm sorry?
So if I take the medication when the pressure low, continue taking it even though it's low to 105 or 107 over.
Yes, because what you have is control. That's what you're looking for. You're not looking to bring it down, and when it starts to go back up, you don't want to do that. You don't want your pressure to go back up at all. You want it to remain at a normal rate. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. And I think this is something, Doc, that needs to be really emphasized. So there we go. And we spoke about it earlier. You take a medication and you notice some changes and then you stop. It is not a good practice at all. Let's go back to a telephone. Doctor and call. Good evening.
Yes, good night, sir. I've just joined the program and I realized it's all about blood pressure. I am hypertensive, but one of the things I'm really looking at, normally I have a machine I bought from a States. It's a digital one. It's a Walgreen special, they said. But what I find when I check my pressure at home, it's good. When I go to the doctor or to the medical station to check it, it's a different case. The nurses sometimes will tell me, well, Mr. Reddit, you'll get different reading from different machine. But I just want to ask the doctor, just if you could advise me what is a good one, because sometimes it confuses me. Even though my pressure gets low, like sometimes it's 90-something, I still take the medication. I don't stop. But the problem I think I'm having is with the machine I use. I want to go by the medical station.
Don't go either. So I'm going to advise you to take your machine and get your pressure checked. Use both the one there and yours to compare that they're working, that is synchronized. Because sometimes there's a thing called, don't wait, there's a thing called white coat syndrome. Once you get in the clinic, you start, there are patients that I just don't even want to take their pressure in my office anymore. Go home, take it, and the readings are different. They're satisfactory. They're where I want it to be. So sometimes that's what happens. But I would advise to take your blood pressure machine and go check it against what nurse has. That might be a good way to figure out what's going on.
I did that once, and they did a comparison, and it was not the same thing. But one thing the doctor said to me is that most people, when they come by the doctor, she says she don't know what's wrong with pressure. Sometimes it's good as you come to the doctor's office, you get a whole different kind of reading. Things start to escalate. She says she don't know if it's fear instilled in people or what. But I appreciate what...
Expect doctor to find it high.
Yeah, I appreciate that though. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, caller.
Who just went off, he asked, and I tell you, I use Omron because that's what's recommended by the OMRON is recommended by the World Health Organization. So make sure your battery is always up. That's one other thing. So when your battery starts failing, you may not get the pressure.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Always. So I'm glad people are asking practical questions. But guess what? I'm also hearing the people who are aware. Notice they all have SFIGs. They all check their blood pressure.
Yes. Yeah. No. That's excellent.
We have 100% of our callers checking their blood pressure.
Checking their blood pressure. Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, Doc, that was our last caller because we're practically out of time. And, again, I want to thank you so very much. And it was so nice having you back. Next week, actually, we're looking at women's health because it's awareness for international action for women's health. So, ladies, we'll be doing a special program for you next week. So be sure to join us and spread, men too. So spread the word, call all your friends, let them know that we have a special doctrine call next week focusing on women's health, what you should do. Hopefully, we should try and get Mrs. Brown, Doc. Yes, if she's available, we'll try and get her to come onto the program, and so we can talk medicine and nutrition as it relates to women's health. So we look forward to that. Doc, thank you so much. Anything in closing?
I want to make just a couple points before we go.
Yeah.
So, hypertension is a problem for us, okay? We see a lot of people with strokes, we see a lot of people with kidney failure and other problems, okay? Hypertension and heart attacks and stuff. Hypertension is a problem. And while we have not done the research in our communities, we know people that look like us, that live our kind of lifestyle, they have a very high, what we call a high prevalence, a high existence in the community of high blood pressure. Up to 80% of people over 50 years, live in communities where they do not, the awareness is low. And even when they know, they don't seek care or they don't follow care. Luckily tonight, all the people who called actually participate actively in their care. And I'm going to ask them to start spreading messages with your friends. It is very important because I think when our peers do this and we talk about it, we can understand each other a little better. Unfortunately, there's little awareness, as we say, and also we find that our governments and even the agencies that focus on development tend not to prioritize something like hypertension, despite the ample spread of these diseases and living in conditions that predispose us to having diseases, right? Remember, the food that goes on discount is always the food that's bad for us. I'm just reminding people that, okay? It's cheap, but it's bad, okay? Our responsibility is to prevent catastrophes like strokes and heart attacks and heart failure. You know, that you had tear up in your chest and you die. It can happen, okay? So remember, it is your responsibility. We're here to support, but I want you to be the captain of your ship. I'm asking everybody, You're 18 years old, start check once or twice a year. If you have high blood pressure, you have to see a doctor regularly, at least every 3 months. Certainly as often as is necessary until your pressure comes under control. All right? Certainly as often as is necessary until your pressure comes under control.
Mm-hmm.
That's your responsibility to you. My responsibility to you, if I were your physician, is to guide you as to how we can make this thing work in your favor. Remember, the objective of controlling your pressure is so that you can live long.
That's right.
Okay? So that you don't die at 45 from a heart attack or at 55 because your heart failed 10 years ago, right? Or that your kidney fails and you have a lot of challenges. And these are things that we have control over. There is change in lifestyle, there are medications. Well, a friend said no garlic, and I agree with him. Well, garlic is not it. You can include garlic in your because it maybe helps, but it's not the be-all. And then the amount of garlic you probably have to eat, you have to stay home because you can't go to a road smelling a garlic like that. Okay? So that's the other thing. But do what you must to live as long as you should. Do whatever you must to live as long as you should. Thank you, people. Have a nice weekend. It's a long weekend this weekend, and I look forward to it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Doc. And I also want to remind people to continue getting vaccinated. COVID-19 is as real can be. Don't wait, because the threat is not the vaccine. The threat is COVID-19. So please, people...
COVID-19 is at our door. People think, we don't have it, and that's okay for now. We don't know who crosses our borders. The people who are checked or come on the boat and are checked, they're checked. There are people who are coming to our ports where we can't find them, and they're probably the ones who are silent carriers of the disease and who will spread it to us, the uninitiated, those of us who have not chosen to take our vaccines. Right. In the interim, I'm going to advise you. We saw cough and cold last week, and a lot of people got sick. It means that we have not been doing everything the way we should. That was a good test. That was a good test for us. Please make sure you remind your children how to wash their hands, how to wear their mask properly, and wash those little cloths, please.
That's right.
Wash them every day. You have to put them in a little dishwashing liquid, and you rub it out, and you hang it in the sun to dry, okay? Wash those masks. Even if you're going to recycle your other surgical masks, you have to wash them and put them to dry.
Put them to dry, yes.
In the sun. Wash your hands. Stay away from people as much as you can, right? Because last week was a really good test to see that proved that we're not doing the things that we should.
That's right.
And a year to practice. Let us promise ourselves that we're not getting coronavirus, because we'll do the things we have to do, and then we're going to take our vaccine where it is. And I know there are probably a few people who can't take it, but most of us can. You know.
Oh, definitely.
The vaccine. So I know people are kind of concerned. In Europe, they have shown, and this is from Public Health England, that 10 people in a million people, 10 people per million, develop clots. Okay? That means if you're going to extrapolate, is 1 person per 100,000, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And just for discussion, our population is 100,000. So our chances is, I mean.
So one person per 100,000, and not all 10 people died. Let's say the laws of average didn't work in our favors, and those 10 happened in all 100,000 population, because it can be distributed that way, right? We still want to make sure that it is less likely that we get coronavirus. So you have to give yourself a fighting chance.
That's right.
Doing what will protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things. There's a study that showed that people who are healthcare providers, people who worked on the front line, once they started vaccinating, the death rate dropped by 70% in the first 6 weeks. The infection rate and the death rate by even much more. So there are other research. Go there and read the things. Be careful. Get information.
And read from credible sources. Use credible sources. You know.
Ask if this is valid, because it looks very valid. Trust me. You can put Paradise Plum in a gold paper. It's still Paradise Plum in here.
Yes, it is. And you know,
in a Godiva, if you put Paradise Plum in a Godiva paper, it's still Paradise Plum. If you put the Godiva chocolate in the Godiva paper, it's Godiva. It's Godiva. So be very careful that you get in Paradise Plum or wrap up in Godiva.
Right, wonderful. Doc, thank you so very much again, and we'll be talking pretty soon as we get ready for next week's very special program on women's health. Thank you, folks. That's our program this week. Thank you for your calls, and of course, thank you for staying with us. I'll be back with you tomorrow evening. It's Wednesday. We have released it, so be sure to join us. Until then, do have a good night. All the best.
Even made it to the semi-finals of Africa's Got.
Drug abuse, cancer,